You are Locked On Mets, your daily New York Mets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello to all you amazing Mets fans. You're listening to Locked On Mets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you for making Locked On Mets your first listen every day. Locked On Mets, free and available on all platforms, including YouTube. On the show today, a big blowout Mets win to discuss. The bats came alive, and I'll tell you all about it in the first segment. Second segment, we're going to talk about the fact that the Mets are back in first place, tied with the Phillies, after the Phillies have now dropped 3 games in a row. So we'll go through all that. Before we do, I'm your host, Ficklestein. I've been covering the New York Mets on this show since the 2019 season. This is the only podcast that covers the Mets 7 days a week throughout the regular season, even when I am on vacation. Those of you who listened to the show yesterday know, out of town for the weekend and doing a couple of shows here in the car, outside the hotel. Always love the vibe late at night. Got to love it. So let's just dive right into what has been an awesome series. Something tells me that the Mets do better where I'm not at home too. Because last year, that series that sparked the season against the Nationals, well, for one, I was actually there for it. So that was part of while I was on the road. I was in D.C. with my dad celebrating his birthday, and that's where the Mets swept the Nationals. So, we feel like we brought a little bit of good luck last season, but it just feels like when I go out of town, good things happen. So maybe I just got to live on the road a little bit. But then again, the Mets have been doing pretty good all season long, and it's good to see the bats finally wake up as they did on Saturday here. Coming into Friday, when the Mets were opening up the series against the Rockies, on that show, I said the Mets should average over 5 runs per game this series, and I talked about why there was no excuses. The Mets had to hit this weekend because the starting pitching for the Rockies is just that brutal, and we saw that today. Antonio Senzatella was awful. It was clear that the Mets had a great opportunity to score a bunch of runs, a lot of pitches over the heart of the plate, and they really took advantage. First inning, they put up a 4 spot. Francisco Lindor, Brandon Nimmo each get base hits to lead things off. Juan Soto draws a walk to load the bases. After Pete Alonso strikes out, here comes Brett Baty in the 5-hole, and he rips a line drive into left center field. It hits off the top of the wall. Had Brenton Doyle gotten a good jump on that, considering how good of a center fielder he is, won a Gold Glove last year, there's a world where he probably should have caught that just because of how good he is defensively. But that does not take anything away from Baty, who put a charge into that baseball, and it results in a bases-clearing triple to give the Mets their first 3 runs. After Jared Young lined out, Tyrone Taylor got a 2-out base hit with runner in scoring position, bring home Baty, and the Mets had a 4-1 lead just like that. It took until the 4th inning for them to pile on some runs again, but they had another crooked number that they put up in that 4th inning. Francisco Lindor got a 2-out single. Brandon Nimmo blasted his 9th home run of the season to give the Mets a 6-1 lead. As Brandon Nimmo and Francisco Lindor are taking their little picture for social media after the home run, all of a sudden, you see, crack of the bat, first pitch, Juan Soto goes deep. Guess he didn't like Brandon Nimmo having the team lead for home runs by outfielders, and so he tied him up right there with his 9th home run of the season. Goes back-to-back with Nimmo. 3 spot for the Mets there to go up 7-1. Later in the game, Jeff McNeil put the icing on the cake, or the cherry on top of the sundae, whatever you wanted to call it. He hit his 3rd home run of the season in the bottom of the 8th inning to give the Mets an 8-2 lead, and that is what the final score ended up being. Everyone in the starting lineup got a hit. Francisco Lindor and Brandon Nimmo each got 2, and that all made it a pretty easy day for Kodai Senga. I will say, I love this new configuration of the lineup with Nimmo batting second and Soto and Alonso moving down a little bit. I think Nimmo is really thriving in this role, and I would stop with the left-right stuff. I would just keep Brandon Nimmo in the 2-hole. He can hit left-handed pitching. Now, it's funny because before the season started, I was advocating for Mark Vientos to open up the year in the 2-hole and to have Soto bang third, because I felt like it was a great way to help Vientos off of his rookie season. Not his rookie season, because he obviously played before that, but his first full season, his breakout season, to give him as many fastballs in the zone as possible, with Soto providing the protection. But at this point, you just cannot warrant putting Mark Vientos in the 2-hole. And I know we'll still probably see against lefties Starling Marte in the 2-hole. And Marte, to his credit, has been swinging a good bat since May, but I wouldn't even play with that. This should be your 1 through 4. Just stick with it. These are all everyday players. Unless Nimmo's getting a day, it should be Lindor, Nimmo, Soto, Alonso here on out until you need to change it up again. But I really love how that 4 is coming together. And I think it makes a lot of sense because it allows Nimmo to play both roles. When the opportunity calls for it, he certainly can still be the run producer we've seen him become over the last couple of years, but he can also get back to being the guy that's the on-base threat that he was for a larger portion of his career. So I just think that this lineup hopefully is going to use this series as a springboard, as we were talking about going into the weekend, to continue to have a lot of offensive success. You're not going to get starting pitching as bad as what the Mets have seen in this series. It's going to be a lot tougher after this, although they are going to see the Rockies next weekend too. But having that confidence boost for Nimmo, for Soto, Lindor has found his swing the last couple of days. You can't say enough how important that can be for a game that is so mental, and so hopefully this can be a real turning of the tides for this offense. Now, to talk about the pitching, Kodai Senga gave up a solo homer in the first inning, but he was able to put it on cruise control after that. He struck out 3 in that first inning, struck out 5 of the first 7 batters that he faced, and from the point when he gave it the home run all the way through until he issued a leadoff walk in the 7th, he retired 17 in a row. So Senga was just rolling with the lead, and that was great to see. He did run out of gas in that 7th inning, issued a couple of walks. The one out that he got was a 111-mile-per-hour line drive into Brett Baty's glove. Then he gives up a hit after his second walk issue to Thairo Estrada that scores a run. The Mets pull him. They go to Jose Butto, but Butto did a good job getting out of that inning, and he continued on and was able to pitch a strong 8th inning as well, retiring the side in order, erasing his walk with a double play that ended that inning. So great job by Butto. He's proven me wrong lately. He's pitching well with runners on base, stranding a lot of inherited runners. I think that's now, what would it be, 8 over his last couple appearances, because he came into 2 bases loaded spots and was able to get big outs with 2 outs in those 2 chances. And then here he was again, stranding a couple of runners for Senga, which did close the book on him with 6 1/3 innings pitched, allowed 2 hits, 2 walks, 2 runs scored, 7 strikeouts. So a good start by Senga. Butto, good job doing the heavy lifting and relief. And then Chris Devanski, who I didn't talk about on this show yet, he replaced Brendan Waddell for this series after Waddell did all that work in the last series as the White Sox thrown the 94 pitches out of the bullpen. You knew he was going to go down. So Devanski has been in the bullpen now, and he pitched a scoreless 9th inning to close out the game. Great game by the Mets overall. They have now won, 6 out of 8 here on this homestand. I said going in, they should win 7 of 9. I talked about beating the Dodgers in the series and then winning 5 of 6 against the White Sox and the Rockies. Now it's your time to finish things off, and they're now playing to remain in first place as the Phillies suddenly are on a 3-game losing streak, and now these 2 teams are tied in the division. I want to talk about that in just a minute, but first, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The NBA playoffs are in full swing, and every night delivers highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and can't-miss moments. Whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout player, there's never been a better time to get in on the action. FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before tip-off and live. With player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays, fans have more ways than ever to play smart and win big. I told you on yesterday's show, if you thought that Juan Soto was due to hit a home run, you could have taken his home run prop along with the Mets winning the game, tried to win big. You might have won if you took that bet. You can look at it again. Maybe you think Soto's going to go yard, back-to-back days, get his 10th home run of the season, or maybe you feel like Pete Alonso's do. Whatever it is, you can find everything over at FanDuel. And if you're new to FanDuel, it's the perfect time to sign up. Head to FanDuel.com and place your first $5 bet. If it wins, you're going to get $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. If you're an everydayer that's always tuning into the show, make sure you become a Locked On Mets insider. This is our texting service where you get updates from me anytime news breaks on the Mets. You can ask me questions anytime, take part in our Locked On Mets signed photo giveaways. You get a live graphic sent to your phone each day so you know who's in the starting lineup without ever having to go on social media. If you want to be a Locked On Mets insider, find the link in the episode description. We'll go to subtext.com/LockedOnMets. The Philadelphia Phillies have been in first place for a couple weeks now. It was Monday, May 19th, when the Mets ceded control of first place when they lost the first game of their series in Boston against the Red Sox. They had spent the previous 35 days in first place. It's been 12 days since then. But all of a sudden, New York Mets back tied with the Phillies in first place. The Phillies have been playing some tougher teams than the Mets have this week, and they've been able to gain some ground. First, the Phillies did beat the Braves. They took the first two games of their series, but the Braves were able to salvage one. And then luckily for us, the Brewers came into town. Actually, I'm not sure if that series took place in Philly or in Milwaukee, but regardless, the Phillies are up against the Brewers right now, and the Brewers have been beating them down. Today, they scored 17 runs, 11 of them on Jesus Luzardo, who had a 2.15 ERA going into the start. ERA ballooned to 3.58. Now all of a sudden the Phillies have lost 3 games in a row, and look at it now. Here you go, Mets and Phillies tied for first place in the National League East. Now I don't typically do scoreboard watching in May, although hey, now it's June, so I guess I'm kind of doing some scoreboard watching in June. But even then, typically you don't look at the scoreboard too much, and who are the Phillies playing next? Who are the Braves playing next? Who are the Mets playing next? That heats up in August. I remember last year it was really in August when it started to really pick up because there were so many teams you got to keep tabs of in the wild card race. But it is going to be a battle all season long. I don't think that the Mets just went through their last stretch of being out of first place and they're just going to win wire to wire from here. It could happen. I think the Phillies are still going to be good for the rest of the year, and this is just an opportunity for the Mets to gain a little bit of ground. And there's going to be times where the Mets are playing some good teams, and they might fall back, and so you need to make sure that when you get these opportunities, you capitalize on them. So that's what makes Sunday's game so important. You got to complete the sweep. Doesn't matter how good you look on Saturday. If you lose a game to the Rockies, it's a failed series. And it's really, in some ways, unfair to hold a team to that standard, but we're talking about a team that has aspirations to win the National League East. And so if they're going to do that for the first time since 2015, a decade ago, geez, I don't know if you can hear the one of the cars in the hotel parking lot's going off. I hope that's not coming on the screen right now. Or not the screen, geez. That's not coming across the audio right now. Otherwise, I might have to just move in this parking lot. Should I do that mid-record? Is that safe? I don't know. I'm recording on my phone, but I got the laptop on my lap. That would be the first time I've ever driven a car on the podcast. Part of me now wants to do it just for the fun of it, and also because that horn is driving me nuts. But I'm just going to try to steamroll my way through it because I imagine that as you're listening to it, as long as I'm talking, probably aren't hearing it. If you are, well, I guess you and I are in the same boat. And luckily, okay, they finally came out and they turned that off. Great. All right, so that was a side note for no apparent reason, but we'll leave it all in there. Why not? It's setting the scene. It's setting the scene outside the Spring Hill Suites Marriott. Yeah, so how about that? Now, getting back to what I was talking about here with the Mets and the Phillies, yeah, you have to take advantage of these bad teams. You have to complete this stretch. And if the Mets do, it goes back to the beginning of this homestand where I laid out what was in front of the Mets. 25 games until they met with the Phillies head-to-head, first time this year in Philadelphia. That's going to be an awesome series to get excited about, to look ahead towards. And now we're almost through the first 9 games of that 25-game stretch. And I said it at the beginning, the Mets had to complete this homestand 7-2. They've done all of the heavy lifting. Now you just got to win a getaway day before you head on the road for a West Coast trip. And then I also just recently, as the Mets started this series against the Rockies, kind of focused in on another little stretch, which was this series against the Rockies, 4 games against the Dodgers in LA, and then 3 at Coors against the Rockies again. A stretch where I said the Mets should go 8-2. How I got there was you just shouldn't lose against the Rockies, because that's how bad this team is. So hopefully the Mets can get the job done, and then they can go and they can get at least 2 against the Dodgers and go on from there. And you know what? If they do lose this game on Sunday, beat the Dodgers, then you make up for it. That's the way I look at it. But you got to continue to put your foot on the gas pedal, because it would be really ideal if the Mets could be going into that stretch of the season where they're going to play the Braves. I think it's Braves, Phillies, Braves, something like that. Coming up here, you want to have a little cushion potentially. You still got to beat those teams head-to-head, but you know the bigger cushion you have, the less you can fall if that stretch doesn't go well, as the first 2 series, I believe, are in Atlanta and then in Philadelphia. But it's all out in front of the Mets. And after they go on the road, they come home, they score off against the Nationals and the Rays. And the way the Mets have been playing at home this year, I believe I saw Mike Mayer tweeted it out today. Was it the Mets 20? They're not 27-3. Where are they at home this year? I know whatever they are at home this year is the first time they've been that at home. It's 23-7. Okay. I have the numbers right, just in the wrong order. 23-7 this year at home. And it's the first time they've started that well at home since 1986, which you always love any stat that it's the first time since 1986. Makes you feel like the juju's in the right place. But the way this Mets team is playing at home, you look ahead to that homestand that they're going to play before they end up on that road trip where they're going to go to Atlanta and then Philadelphia. And you got to feel pretty good that as long as the Mets can take care of business, both in this final game against the Rockies, can hold their own against the Dodgers, and then can take care of business in Colorado, they'll come home, have a good homestand, and they're going to be sitting pretty. It's exciting to see where this season's going. Now that we get into June, it feels like everything starts to pick up. Balls start flying more so the offense can pick up. And after last year, I don't know, June 1st just makes me happy, just makes me excited, because we saw what a magical run the final 4 months of the season can be. And it's going to be tough to top the 2024 Mets. That was a team that had dug such a hole. It was so incredibly spectacular to watch them overcome all odds to make the playoffs. This year, you're not in that boat. This year, the expectation is without a doubt to make the playoffs, if not win the division. And so it's cool that the bar has been raised for this version of the New York Mets. And I'm excited to see what the best version of this team looks like. You've seen Mark Vientos and Brett Baty both sort of commenting on this over the last couple of days, that it's pretty wild that the Mets still haven't gotten their lineup rolling the way it can. And they know that their best baseball is still ahead of them. It's going to be tough for them to pitch as well as they have all season long, because they've just been so ridiculously good. But if that pitching slides back, I think there's a lot more room for the Mets to, advance to the mean of their career averages for a lot of these hitters, then they're going to regress to the mean when it comes to their pitchers. So this team, I think, hopefully, is going to use this series as that real launching pad and use the calendar flipping to June to take off the way they did last year. And if that happens, we are in for a very exciting summer ahead. I appreciate all of you for tuning in. Only 2 segments today, as again, on the road, figured I would just recap the game, talk about the Mets now being back in first place. Hopefully they can hold on to this and keep it for a while. Wouldn't mind to see the Mets atop the standings for 35 more days like they were the last time they were in first place, but we will see how everything goes from there. I'll be back with a normal edition of Locked On Mets tomorrow. You'll have the video up if you're watching on YouTube. And, of course, it's been hitting your podcast feed the same way every day. But I'm sure the sound quality will be a little bit better. And I would imagine there's going to be no threat of a car honking in the parking lot during my recording tomorrow night. Unless, somebody in my apartment really wants to annoy me and all the neighbors. But anyway, that's going to be all for this edition of Locked On Mets. Appreciate all of you for tuning in. Make sure you follow, rate, and review wherever you get your podcast. If you're watching on YouTube, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button. I'll be back again on tomorrow's show. As always, thank you for making Locked On Mets your first listen or your first watch every day. Now, for your second watch or listen, check out Locked On MLB Game Night, which will take you around Major League Baseball and hit on all the big topics of the night before, all the different games with insight from our local experts. You can find Locked On MLB Game Night on your podcast feeds on Locked On MLB, as well as the Locked On MLB YouTube channel.